Hi, everybody. My name is Tracy, and I'm the director at Potosi Pines Camp. Rocking my Potosi tie-dye today. And I wanted to read for you one of my favorite storybooks. I use this a lot at camp, so our Potosi kids will know it, but maybe some of you haven't heard it before, and if you have, it's worth hearing again because it's a good one. I want to share with you today The Tale of Three Trees, which is a great storybook. I'm trying to do this on my own with no camera person, so, because, social distancing and all. So we'll see how this goes. Let's see if I can get the book in. Once upon a mountaintop, three little trees stood and dreamed of what they wanted to become when they grew up. The first little tree looked up into the stars, twinkling like diamonds above him. I want to hold a great treasure, he said. I want to be covered in gold and filled with precious stones. I will be the most beautiful treasure chest in all the world. The second little tree looked out on the small stream trickling by on its way to the ocean. I want to be a strong sailing ship, he said. I want to travel on mighty waters and carry powerful kings. I will be the strongest ship in the whole world. The third little tree looked down into the valley where busy men and busy women worked in a busy town. I don't ever want to leave this mountaintop at all, she said. I want to grow so tall that when people look up at me, they will raise their eyes to heaven and think of God. I will be the tallest tree in the whole world. Years passed, the sun shone and the rains came, and the three little trees grew taller. And then one day, three woodsmen climbed the mountain. The first woodcutter looked at the first tree and said, "This tree is beautiful. It's perfect for me." And with a swoop of his shining axe, the first tree fell. Now I shall be made into a beautiful chest, thought the first tree. I will hold wonderful treasure. The second woodcutter looked at the second tree and said, "This tree is strong. It is perfect for me." And with a swoop of his shining axe, the second tree fell. Now I shall be able to sail on mighty waters, thought the second tree. I'll be a strong ship fit for kings. The third little tree felt her heart sink when the last woodcutter looked her way. She stood straight and tall and pointed bravely to heaven, but the woodcutter never even looked up. "Any kind of tree will do for me," he said, and with the swoop of his shining axe, the third tree fell. The first tree rejoiced when the woodcutter brought her into the carpenter's shop. But the busy carpenter was not thinking about treasure chests. Instead, his work-worn hands fashioned the tree into a feed box for animals. The once beautiful tree was not covered with gold or filled with treasure. He was coated with sawdust and filled with hay for hungry farm animals. The second tree smiled when the woodcutter took him to the shipyard. But no mighty sailing ships were being made that day. Instead, the once strong tree was hammered and sawed into a simple fishing boat, too small and too weak to sail on any ocean or even a river. He was taken to a little lake where every day he brought in loads of dead, smelly fish. The third tree was confused when the woodcutter cut her into strong planks and left her in the lumber yard. What happened? The once tall tree wondered. All I ever wanted to do was stay on the mountaintop and point to God. Many, many days and nights passed. The three trees nearly forgot about their dreams. But one night, golden starlight poured over the first tree as a young woman placed her newborn baby into the feed box. I wish I could have made a cradle for him, her husband whispered. But the mother just squeezed his hand and smiled at the starlight that shone on the smooth, sturdy wood. This manger is beautiful, she said. And suddenly, the first tree knew he was holding the greatest treasure in all the world. One evening, a tired traveler and his friends crowded into an old fishing boat. The traveler fell asleep, and the second tree quietly sailed out onto the lake. Soon a thundering, thrashing storm arose, and the little tree shuddered. He didn't have the strength to carry so many passengers safely through the wind and the rain. But the tired man awakened. He stood up, and he stretched out his hand. Peace, he said, and the storm stopped as quickly as it had begun. Suddenly, the second tree knew that he was carrying the King of heaven and earth. One Friday morning, the third tree was startled when her beams were yanked from a forgotten woodpile. She flinched as she was carried through an angry, jeering crowd. She shuddered when a soldier nailed a man's hands to her. She felt ugly and harsh and cruel. But on Sunday morning, when the sun arose and the earth trembled with joy beneath her, the third tree knew that God's love had changed everything. It had made the first tree beautiful. It had made the second tree strong. And every time people thought of the third tree, they would think of God. And that was better than being the tallest tree in all the world. I hope you liked the story. I use this one a lot on the first night of camp because it's a good reminder that sometimes our plans don't turn out the way we exactly think they will. And a lot of times we come into camp with certain expectations of how the week's going to go, and maybe things don't always go that way. I think we can all relate to that feeling this last week or so. Plans don't go the way you think they were going to. I don't imagine any of us saw ourselves in this situation that we're in right now a couple of weeks ago. But it's a reminder that God has us in his hand, and that even though plans don't go exactly the way we think that they should, or that we would like, that they still, they turn out okay in the end, and that God will work it all out for our good. So trust in that, folks, and share that message with those around you. Don't forget we're praying for you. Take care and be safe. Bye.